Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. Now check this out, y'all. Listen to me. You know what I told you. The streets demand payment. That's just what it is. The streets demand payment from everybody. If you think you get away in the streets when you're doing wrong, when you're doing foul, and listen to let me be clear about what I say when I say doing wrong and doing foul. Ain't nothing right about the rules in the streets. Don't get it twisted. Ain't nothing right about the rules in the street. But here's the thing. The streets has its own set of rules and values, though. And if you don't play by those rules, then you got to pay. The values and the morals in the streets is rough, rugged, and raw. Have you ever seen, I'm going to ask y'all this question real quick before I get to this. Have you ever watched that show, the movie John Wick? And you see how all the criminal world is structured around all of this and that and that and this and all of these things. See, that's the streets. See, a lot of people didn't understand that movie, that whole series. That's the streets. Ain't nothing right about what happens. It happens. And if you commit your life to it, guess what? You got to get to it. And see, a lot of people like to play on the edges and think that they won't be held accountable for what they do. And that's how Rick was. See, Rick thought that he could do anything he want without being held accountable for anything. But one thing he forgot, see, most narcissists don't understand and realize that you got other people on the other side of your behavior that have to suffer the consequences of what you do from your selfish standpoint, from your selfish point of view. See, a lot of people don't want to understand it. They don't want to accept that. And Rick is one of those individuals. Don't want to accept that. Wouldn't accept that. Why is that? Because he's never, other than when they put him in the penitentiary, he's never been held accountable for anything. He never saw the need to be responsible and hold his own self accountable for anything. All he wanted to do was what he wanted to do no matter who got hurt, even his son. Even his son. And when the opportunity came for him to be a father, he failed. He failed. He decided that instead of being a father, he would be selfish. And that's what you do when you're being a criminal, y'all. When you choose to be a criminal, when you choose to be in the street, and I ain't trying to piss nobody off. If I didn't mess with you, I wouldn't tell you. If I thought that this lifestyle that I am so against now was the way to go, you wouldn't hear me saying the stuff that I'm saying. I don't say this for fun. This is real. And anybody telling you otherwise, listen to me now. Listen to me. They're either crazy or they don't get it or they don't care. Either way, you don't need to be listening to that because they're going to lead you down a path that ain't going to be pretty. And then they're going to laugh at you because they're going to be saying, I don't know what you're listening to me for. See, that's what the devil do. The devil will get you. And then he'll laugh at you for listening to him. So stop listening. See, you do have the power. You have full control over you. And I know sometimes it feels uncomfortable. And I know sometimes it feels like you ain't got a choice, but you do. You have a choice. Exercise. See, but Rick was one of those types of people that he was full of tricks. So he would make sure that you didn't even realize that you needed to make another choice because he's pushing his agenda on you. And that's what he did to his son. He pushed his agenda on his son, and his son thought he was doing what was best by him, but he was doing what was best for Rick. And that was that on that. So now his son is in the penitentiary by himself. Let me show you something. His son is starting to meet different people. Because his son is looked at and respected. In the penitentiary, look, the harder you are, the more respect you get. That's just what it is. You feel what I'm saying? The realer you are, the more respect you get. And Tim was seen as a real dude, stand-up dude. You feel me? He did what he did. He took his weight. You feel what I'm saying? So now you got these dudes talking to him, and then one of the dudes that he was talking to worked in the law library. Wait a minute. What did I say? I said the law library. He worked in the law library, y'all. Now, in the law library, we got all the cases that, you know what I'm saying, that people go to trial and go to court with, whatever, and we use the law library to fight our cases, and we want to file appeals, so on and so forth. But you got to remember, Tim took a plea. And when you take a plea, that means that you don't get to come back into court and argue that your case was unfairly done. You understand what I'm saying? You don't get to do that. But here's the thing. If you can prove that your lawyer was not competent, right, and didn't give you the right advice or something went wrong, you can file an appeal, what they call a post-conviction, and claim ineffective assistance of counsel, meaning your lawyer didn't do right by you for whatever reason. And that is what was about to happen. Real talk. He was talking to this dude in the law library. And while he's talking to this dude in the law library, the dude was telling him, look, man, I don't think you should have took that plea. And he said, why'd you take the plea? He said, my daddy told me to take the plea. He said, man, I know your daddy had to stand up reputation, but he said, man, I think your daddy gave you the wrong advice. He said, let me look at your stuff. Tell me what went down. And as he's telling him all of these things, he's like, okay, might be able to get you back in there. You feel what I'm saying? The evidence is weak against you. You have to take a chance. But if you lose, they get to start over if the judge grants your post-conviction. He told him all of that. He said, but what we can do is file a post-conviction, see if we can get it reversed, and then let's look at the evidence. Let's file a motion of discovery and look at the evidence. Wait a minute. The evidence, yeah. What is the evidence and who are the witnesses against you, bro? That's what the dude was trying to get to him. He said, I don't know. I never even went that far. He didn't have any clue as to what that was, what he was talking about. So here we go. Let me show you something. Here we go now. He files the post. He goes to court. It took about 6 months. He goes to court. And in the meantime, in between time, you know, Rick is out there moving on with the relationship with his baby mama, with Tim's mama. They enjoying life. They are enjoying life. They talking on the phone, and Tim, he's telling Rick, he said, I'm thinking about going to court. Rick said, man, leave it alone. But he can't push too hard. You feel me? So Tim said, I just want to see what's going on. So now Rick is a little nervous, but he got to play it cool. So now all of a sudden, the judge grabbed the post. Wait a minute. Now he files for a motion of discovery. Wait a daggone minute. When he files that motion of discovery, guess what he gets? He gets the list of the witnesses against him, and he gets the evidence that the state has against him. And lo and behold, who's the first name, only name on the list other than the two dudes that he shot? His daddy. He sees it. Now, the dude in the law library, when he takes it to him and he shows him, he said, can this be a mistake? Dude said, when you're dealing with these folks, anything can be a mistake. So they looked into it and all this and that and asked the DA, you know what I'm saying, was something off here, this and that. Now, let me show you how the DA is. The DA got what he wants. He don't care. Because even if they go to trial, see, Rick has got to show up to testify. See, that deal he made, that deal still stands. You know what I mean? It had no statutes of limitations on it. If the case got overturned for whatever reason and they needed him to testify, guess what? He was going to have to testify. Now, Tim has got all kind of evidence that's showing that his daddy was working with the police, the DA, from the get-it. He talked him into turning himself in. He gets to read all of this. So now he's sitting in the penitentiary with his new cellie, and they're talking, and he's like, man, my dad ain't shit. Man, my daddy did this to me. Now he's starting to look back over his life and think about all the decisions that he had made and all the things that his dad told him. Excuse me. And he's seeing his daddy for who he really is now. It's clear to him. Now he starts to think about his mama. How's he going to tell his mama that the man that she has re-fallen in love with ain't straight? Because he's a mama's boy. And his mama loves him more than she loves Rick. But he knows that his mama is in love with him and he didn't want to hurt her. So what do you do? What do you do? Does he call his mom and tell her what's going on? Well, first he decided that he was going to call and talk to his daddy. And he was going to confront his daddy with what's really going on. And he told him, get him on the phone. He said, Daddy. He said, yes, son. He said, first of all, I need you to know that I know. And his dad is still playing stuff. He's still playing street. He said, you know what? He said, I got the paper right here, man, the motion of discovery. I know that you was going to testify against me. I know that you helped get me to turn myself in. All of that old kind of stuff in exchange for help from the DA. That's how you got out so soon. That's how you was able to go to parole earlier. His daddy went silent. He said, what you got to say? His daddy said, ain't nothing to say. He said, but it is what it is, son. He said, you drop that appeal, you do your time and get out, and then we can move on with our lives. He said, I would have still been in there. He said, so you didn't care about me at all. He said, I cared about you, but I cared about myself too. He said, it's a win-win for both of us. He said, no, it's not. It's not a win-win. You laid up with my mama, my mama, your wife to be, and she don't know none of this, man. She don't know none of this. He said, if this was in the streets, he said, you know what this would be. But you my daddy. And you betrayed me. You betrayed the rules of the streets. You didn't do it because you cared about me. You did it so you would get out the penitentiary. Now his dad ain't saying nothing. Because he know what it is. But you remember when I told you that the streets have a payment due. You know how your bills come in and say payment due, then it say final notice and all that before they turn your lights off and all that old kind of stuff. Huh? See, it's time for payment. Because the streets don't forgive debts. I know a lot of people think they get away, but if you stay in the lane, y'all don't hear me talking about the lanes. If you stay in that lane, you got to pay sooner or later. Now, if you get out of that lane, the streets move on to the next victim. You understand? The next sucker. But if you stay in that lane and keep playing the rules, you're going to have to play the rules by a certain order. If you don't play by that order, woe unto you. So now Rick, he feeling some kind of way because he paranoid. Tim tell him, look here, man, I'm going to give you a week to tell mama what's going on, or I'm going to tell her. So now he got a week. He get off the phone. He got a week to figure out what his next move is. So he tried to convince Tim's mama to move. Let's move away. She don't want to move. She don't want to move too far away from her son. So she started asking him, what's wrong? What has changed? What's going on? And he's telling her, look, I need to move. We need to go. And if you're not going with me, I'm leaving alone. And they go back and forth 2 or 3 days like it, arguing and fighting because she don't understand what's going on. He's not telling her what's going on, and Tim hasn't told her yet. He hasn't told her yet. So she decides to go see Tim. Rick says he's not going. She didn't need him to go, so she drove up there on her own. She drives up there, and Tim tells her the whole thing. They cry and they hug. And she tells Tim that she's sorry because she feels the blame for what happened to her child. Because she chose this man. She knew that he was no good, but she chose this man. And like a lot of women, she thought that he would change. She thought that he had changed, but he hadn't. She felt sick because she fell in love with him again. And she found out that he had done the one thing that she couldn't forgive him for. her son was in prison because of this man, his own father. She wouldn't let that go. She couldn't let it go. So she kissed her son and told him, "I'll see you." She drove home. When she got home, he was standing on the porch with tears in her eyes and her legs shaking. She got out of the car, walked past him, and told him to get your shit and get out. He looked at her as she walked past him and walked into the house. And he said, "I'm not going anywhere." When he walked in behind her, she kept walking. She walked into the bedroom, slammed the door, locked it. He could hear the bolt going on the door when she locked it. She was doing something in there. He didn't know what she was doing. She was getting the gun out. When she opened the door, she said, "Get out of my house. I'll have your stuff on the porch later. Get out." He backed out, arms up, out of the house. Then he left. She put all his stuff in trash bags and threw it out in the front yard. One day go by, he don't come get it. 2 days go by, he still hadn't come and got it. She left it there in the yard for everybody to see. She was done with it. Done. The third day, she heard he had been shot in the back of the head and left to die in the alley. The streets had caught up with him, y'all. Now, when Tim got to that part of the story, I said, "How did you feel when you heard about your pops getting killed?" He said, "Man, it hurt me because I loved him. But when you play like he played with his own life and mine, that's what happens. That's what happens." So you didn't wish that for him. He's like, "Nah, I didn't want nothing else to do with him, but I didn't want him to die." But he played in the streets and he stayed in the streets. And he used everybody that he came in contact with, and he got what he deserved. So when I heard Tim say that, I'm talking about, look, listen to y'all. It was almost like I couldn't breathe. And then it ran through my head. I said, "Woo, I'm so glad that I walked away from this lifestyle. I'm so glad that my sons have walked away from this lifestyle." Now, there's no guarantee of what's going to happen to a person today, tomorrow, or whenever. Remember that. There's no guarantee of what's going to happen to you in the morning. But you don't want to be remembered by the people in your life as somebody that didn't live life the right way and to the fullest by doing good by other people. You don't want to be remembered as that dude that did no good by anybody. Because what happens is when you die and people forget about you, you're done. But when you pass on, when you die, and people remember how good you treated them and how well you treated them and how you changed your life for the better, you live forever. It may not make sense to you. It might not make sense to you right now. But you want to live forever in the memories, in the hearts of the people that you care about. You don't want the people in your life to look at you and feel like you're not even worth remembering. Remember that, y'all. Remember that. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. Wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. Before I go, check out the book. Hit the link, go get the book, y'all, Rivals. And the movie's coming out. I'm going to keep saying it, keep driving it home. And when that trailer comes out, share that trailer with everybody, y'all. Get them to go follow me on that membership page on my YouTube page so that you can watch that movie when it come out, right? Check me out now. It's coming, y'all. It's coming. I'm telling you. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.